All right, we're going to be doing another. No. We're doing a compilation, jazz compilations. Once again, this is number 2 in the series of jazz compilations.
Well, that's kind of my specialty. I mean, I've been studying this since I was in high school and being looked upon as a nerd because I like jazz. So I'll tell you, I've read so many jazz books and I've been told, what are the historic concerts, and they mention them over and over. The first appearance by, say, for Miles Davis at Newport, same from Thelonious Monk, and for many others. And the, the swing record that we
Spirituals to Swing.
Yeah, Spirituals to Swing, which was that at Carnegie Hall? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. That
yeah,
could
but
be.
yeah, could be. That's in the books. It's in the books always, every time.
Okay. So, Jazz, the 50s, Volume 1. This is just another compilation record. This has Jerry Mulligan, Chet Baker.
Oh, this is West
Bud
Coast.
Shank,
Then this is
Shorty Rogers,
That's all West Coast. All West Coast.
Clifford Brown,
I know. No, there we broke out of there.
Bob Bruckheimer, Brookmeyer.
That's West Coast. Let's define this: West Coast and East Coast. West Coast has never really gotten its due. We know how Chet Baker is revered now, but if he hadn't made some ventures to the East Coast and got some exposure there too, and he first was on World Pacific Records. Chet Baker made quite a few recordings on World Pacific and Pacific Jazz. Okay, and I just had one of those records in my hand yesterday, and it has a Mariachi brass band and Chet Baker.
Mariachi,
yeah, band, and they're playing more or less the Herb Alpert type songs, and West Coast swing. Jerry Mulligan is very hard for an acceptance level. Even Stan Getz was thought to be West Coast jazz, and we could call it snobbishness. We could call it this really wasn't the same level of jazz because it never became very experimental. It never it developed on charts and things like that, where the guys on the East Coast were much more into exploring jazz, and it came out of Detroit, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, and they kind of stumped their noses out of L.A., L.A. and jazz, and so.
Interesting, but
and West Coast was also thought to be where, and it was, Benny Goodman was, who became at one time the king of jazz, prior to the when real jazz of
the 50s,
the birth of the jazz on Cool, Birth of the Cool,
with
Miles Davis. But anyway, this West Coast jazz, all those names are West Coast artists, and all the records are excellent. Bob Brookbinder, that was a trombone player, and he was on a number of historic groups, and his own solos as well.
Jack Sheldon. I like all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's try New Orleans Dixieland, 22 Bourbon Street Greats. This is four sides, so it's a 2-record set. New Orleans Heritage Hall Jazz Band.
You hit my sweet spot. Now again, I'm going to tell you that I know for jazz fans out there and collectors especially, they're going to go dizzy. I can pass on that 9 times out of 10 or 99.9% of the times. But when I was in San Francisco, where I was for most of my life, there was a Dixieland Jazz Band Club, Earthquake Lagoons, and there was also one on the waterfront, Pier 23.
That's the one I went to.
And I couldn't get enough of it. I just could not get enough
The
of
Turks
that.
Murphy.
Yeah, Turk Murphy. And the other one was just a rotating group of musicians that played at the on the waterfront there at Pier 23, a bar. And I saw celebrities come to these clubs. I saw famous musicians come to this club, movie stars, all kinds of people. So I knew that there were people out there that really loved the music like I did, and would they? I'm sure they could have gone to places that would have been thought to be more
Classier.
prestigious and bigger names and all that, and there they were, and they'd come in big groups, you know, and what it was is every time I went to see an Earthquake Magoon show or Pier 23.
Turk Murphy.
It felt no. He was at the Earthquake Lagoons.
Okay.
He had that club. He owned it.
Okay.
His band played there 6 nights a week.
I'm just trying to figure out what you were trying to think of.
Yeah, but at any rate, it was a party. It was a party, and never even on a very slow night, it still was a party, and it was contagious. And people talked even when you didn't know people at all, and you just got together in the bar, at the bar, in the restaurant. Everybody was there, opening arms to each other like, can I buy you a drink? How you doing? Where you're from? It was great. I miss those days. I wish I had a club like that here locally.
Kid Ory's on here. Ted Buckner. I'm not
Don't know.
familiar with Teddy Buckner.
No, me either.
Okay, well, they did like a whole side of Teddy
Oh.
Buckner. Then Sidney Beckett.
Yeah, we know him.
So, if you don't know your Dixieland, this has a lot of good Dixieland on it. And
You better end with one here because
Okay.
we've really talked a lot about Dixieland,
Okay.
and I know that not everybody's into that.
Okay, so Pablo All Stars Jams. On that point, I don't care what people are into. I care what we like to talk about, and as long as we're having fun, that's what's
thank you.
what's winning for me.
I don't like to be selfish.
So the Pablo All Stars Jam, Montrose '77. Now this is when Norm Granz started a label, Pablo, and he had all these old friends, right? And he got them started up again. People that maybe hadn't done anything for a couple of years because there wasn't a label to put them out there, and no one was that terribly interested in them anymore. And
Well, who do we have? I can't.
Pablo All Stars is Milt Jackson, Clark Terry, Ronnie Scott, Oscar Peterson, Joe Pass, Niels Peterson, and Bobby Durham, and produced by Norman Granz. And it's 4 songs on this compilation, Montrose '77, which I think he did a lot of stuff for Montrose '77. I think there was a lot of different recordings, and he would put different records together from that festival. It says I am looking here on the to the right. OJC Ray Bryant, Montrose '77. Tommy Flanagan 3, Montrose '77. Roy Eldridge 4, Montrose '77. Benny Carter 4, Montrose '77. Milt Jackson, Ray Brown, Jam, Montrose '77. Ella Fitzgerald with Tommy Flanagan, Montrose '77. So yeah, he recorded all of it, and then said, okay,
Well,
put separate records.
He had Verb Records. He was the producer for Verb Records and owner,
Right.
and he sold it.
And Norgran before that, and Clef before that, or around that.
Yeah. So he sold it and thought he would retire and maybe just do, bring these groups around the world for concerts, and he'd be the promoter of the concerts, which he did. But you could see a natural progression there. That he could record those concerts that he was the promoter for and put them
the
out
same
on
one.
his own label, Pablo. So that's what you had. And a lot of those concerts became historic concerts because we were taking all-stars, jazz all-stars, and putting them in groups that they'd never been in before.
Right.
And so it was very historic. Very historic.
Right. So
And,
I found the second
and the
one.
ones that worked the best became the ones that people today seek out. and those are records because I've had them on Dizzy record auctions, and I'll watch those records get priced way up. I'm not talking about in the hundreds, but they'll go well beyond the
Yeah, well,
$20.
here's the second one, right? And
Yeah.
it's got Oscar Peterson, Dizzy Gillespie, Clark Terry, Eddie Lockjaw Davis, Bobby Durham, and Niels Pearson, and some other people that are put together: Count Basie with Gloria Eldridge, Benny Carter, Zoot Sims, Al Gray, and Vic Dickinson, Ray Brown, Jimmy Smith. All great stuff.
If you see an original jazz classic hype label on a record, this means this record is a classic. Right there, that indicates it to me. I didn't know it. I didn't know it till I saw this label hype sticker. When you see an original jazz classic, this was part of the Prestige, Fantasy, Milestone, debut records, so many different labels, and they all got bought out at one time by Fantasy. And they put out in 1983, and this is when I bought the collection out of Savoy Records. This original jazz classics were sold out of Savoy Records on a closeout, and I bought them at $4 a record. Okay, and I bought multiple copies of every one of them. So I had almost 500 records at $4 a record, and for every 10 I got a free record. And then I sold them about a year ago, and some of them went for over $100 a record, and all of them were being bid up because record store owners were in on the bidding and wanted them in their stores. That's how sought after they are. So when I see this original jazz classic label, OJC, this is a very valuable record, very valuable record. It doesn't mean it's the most sought after, but it's definitely a prestigious record and very good, very well thought of, and very sought after recording.
I don't care how prestigious it is. I just like it, And so I'm glad I picked these up when I picked them up, and just great music.
Well, they aren't available.
Well, they're available to me. I have
last reissue on this was 1983.
Okay. Anyway,
so it's more than 5 or so years ago, and Kraft bought the reissuing rights, and slowly is coming out with the big names: Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk, and this and that, at a rate of about a half a dozen to a dozen records. And on this label, OJC, there was 500 different titles. So they have about another 475 albums that they could release. And they're all very, very good.
All right.
Very good.
Excellent. Well, that's the end of Jazz Compilations for today. And,
I think I talked too much.
I don't think so at all. I think we can all listen to you talk more about jazz.
Thanks
and
for being so patient out there. I really appreciate it.
If not for anyone else, for me, I enjoyed it. So, champ out.
Hey, Dizzy out, but if you have any comments, go ahead. Lay it on me, brother.
We love you. It's great. It's fantastic. Holy moly. That's all good expletives that could be used. That would be fine with us.
All right. Dizzy says I'm down, man.
All right. Take care.